dark. I think we're lost.
We're not lost. Ellen, will you please let me do the driving?
I honestly don't think you're gonna find the Grand Canyon on this road.
Dad, I haven't seen a car for an hour.
You're lost!
Ma, I saw some detour signs.
Audrey, when they close the road, they put up big signs, like this one. Ah!
I better check under the hood.
Hey, Dad, you must have jumped this thing about 50 yards.
That's nothing to be proud of, Rusty. 50 yards.
That family vacation is one of the classics, of course. And don't you love it? For some people, that's family vacation. For other families, that's just a normal trip to Target. Right? Hey, my name is Byron, and I always love coming here to be with you at Prairie Heights. And so welcome to everybody, whether you're here this morning or watching online. Hey, we are in a series about family, and today the topic is discipline. And so when you think about discipline, some of you might go, oh, I can tune out, I don't have kids, or my kids are growing up. Or you might be like the 14-year-old who was in the lobby, came up to me after the first service, and he said, hey, I really enjoyed that message. That helps me understand discipline from my parents. So no matter who you are, what age, or where you're at in life, married couple, blended family, single parent, I think there's something here for everybody. How many of you have ever used the phrase, does someone need a timeout? Mm-hmm. How many of you as parents, especially of toddlers, have you ever felt, I need a timeout, right? Just to get away, just to have a break. Well, it's a challenge without a doubt. And so to help you think about the challenge of disciplining kids, I want you to watch a clip from an old sitcom called Everybody Loves Raymond. And let me tee it up for you. Raymond and Deborah have been arguing about the discipline of their kids. She thinks she has to do all the hard stuff, and he just, he wants to be the fun father and all of that, and they're going back and forth. And so let's watch.
Guys, what are you doing?
Playing.
You're supposed to clean up your room.
5 more minutes.
Oh. No. No, not this time. Not 5 more minutes. Now. Guys, I want you to clean up your room.
5 more minutes.
No. Guys, I mean it. Guys, I'm not fooling around, okay? All right, you know what? You know what? Listen, guys, I mean it. Stop, guys, I want you to clean this room now. Come on, guys, I'm not fooling around. Stop it. Stop it, guys. I'm getting annoyed now. Stop this. Guys. Okay, no TV for a month.
What?
You're gonna clean this room, all right? And then I'm gonna find some more work for you to do. Like take out the trash every day. That's right. Used to be my job. Well, now it's yours, okay? You wanna live here? I'm the boss. I don't work for you. You work for me.
What's all the...
I got it.
Daddy's being mean and crazy.
Oh, I'm crazy. I'm crazy. You know what? Forget about cleaning up the room because it's bedtime. Come on.
Ray.
Say goodnight to Mommy. Go. Get in bed. Get in bed. Come on. Come on. Lie down. Lie down over there. Go. Lie down.
Ray, it's noon.
Well, that's the new bedtime. All right? I'm not kidding around anymore. No more fun stuff. And if there's any more screwing around, no TV, no dessert, no Christmas, Easter, 4th of July, or Halloween.
Ray, you're being ridiculous.
Night, night, lights out. Just put your hands over your eyes and pretend that it's dark out. Come Come on, let's go, let's go. Sweet dreams, gentlemen. I suggest you sleep because I'm planning on filling the garbage tomorrow with the heaviest garbage.
Disciplining kids, raising them, it's hard. Yeah, and Raymond needs a timeout. I won't ask for a show of hands, but my guess is if we've been a parent, there are times when afterwards we've attempted some sort of discipline and afterwards we go, oh man, I blew it. That was not good. That was not good. It's hard. So maybe we need to start with a basic question. Why is it so important? Why is it so important, in fact, to try to discipline and raise kids from a biblical perspective? Very simply, think about it this way. Because it's our responsibility as parents, and I'm going to say, and if you're not a parent, we can support those who are. It's our responsibility and opportunity as parents to raise our kids, to discipline them, to help them get to the point where they know Christ as Savior, they want to live for Him and glorify God with their lives. Jesus was asked, what is the greatest commandment? And in Matthew chapter 22, verse 37, He said this, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and with all of your mind. That's the goal of raising kids, of disciplining kids, that they might get to the point where they're completely surrendered to God. But it's hard. It is really, really hard. The picture of success is seeing them want to follow Jesus and want to give their life to God. And notice I said they want to. So oftentimes as we are raising kids, especially when they're little, we're satisfied if they just go, okay, I got to do this. Okay, I have to. But we want them to get to the point as young adults, for an example, where they are going, I want to. I want to live in such a way that it pleases God. I really want to. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. I really enjoyed watching the video, online presentation of the service last week when we had the dads up here for the panel. And for that, it was the verse Proverbs 22, verse 6 was used there, and so I love to use it again. It's such a powerful reminder about raising and disciplining kids. Train up a child in the way that he or she should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. In some translations, it actually says, train up a child in the way that he or she should go, and when they are old, they will come back to what you have raised them to be. So when you think about this, that's the goal, but it's hard. That way to go, the way to go is to follow Christ and to live in such a way that pleases God. But that's going to take hard work. Disciplining kids is hard. Helping them to go in the right direction, to go the right way. Imagine this, and for some of us, you've actually experienced this. Your 16-year-old son has the driver's license, and you're helping him drive, and so he's sitting there, you're sitting in the front of the passenger seat next to him, and so he's driving, and you're saying, okay, you might want to turn and go here. Okay, slow down, maybe slow down just a little bit. Parents, time out. Has anyone ever felt nervous when your 16-year-old is driving and you're riding in the car? Maybe just a little bit, right? Oh, wait, don't go there. There's a cliff that drops 1,000 feet down. Stop! Now, you might even yank on the wheel in order to protect your 16-year-old. Now, maybe the 6-year-old slams on the brakes and goes, what are you doing? Why are you yelling at me? Because I want us to live. That's why. Sometimes the relationship between us and our kids seems volatile. But the bottom line comes back to this. It's hard, but we must be committed to help them make the right choices on the way that they should go. Many parents are also afraid to upset their kids or to make them mad. Think about it this way. When that 5-year-old is misbehaving and you apply some discipline, some corrective measure, that 5-year-old looks at you and says, I don't love you anymore. Or how about the worst is when they say, I hate you. Now, sadly, some parents, they go, oh, wow, I don't ever want my son or my daughter to feel that way, and that doesn't feel good to me. That's a lot of power to give to a 5-year-old. It's hard, but what if we were going to go, okay, right now, honey, I know you don't really love me, but I love you, and trust me, there'll come a time when you love me for what I'm doing in your life right now. But it's hard. So then the question is, so how do we go about it? How do we do this? How do we raise your kids? How do we discipline them? How do we get them on the right way? How do we get them to the point where they turn out right? We just want them to turn out right. That's the desire of any parent. That's the desire of grandparents, to see their grandkids turn out right and live God's way. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the next few minutes, and we are going to take a look from God's Word at some ways that we might apply discipline. Here's the first way. We need to discipline with love. With love. Let me take it to Hebrews chapter 12, verses 6 through 11. For the Lord disciplines those he loves, and he punishes each one that he accepts as his child. As you endure his divine discipline, remember that God is treating you as his own children. Who ever heard of a child who is never disciplined by his father? Well, sadly, in today's culture, we hear about that quite often. Jumping ahead to verse 10. For our earthly fathers disciplined us for a few years, doing the best that they knew how. But God's discipline is always good for us, so that we might share in his holiness. You see the reason, the purpose? To share in his holiness. No discipline is enjoyable when it's happening. It's painful. But afterwards, there will be a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way. The Bible is telling us here how the loving Father, out of love, disciplines us and corrects us. Why? So that we might share in his holiness. Now, we can apply this to the discipline of children. And you might be going, wait a minute, that they're going to be holy. Right now, for some of us, it's hard to imagine that your child might ever be holy. In fact, I wonder if the whole idea of discipline not being enjoyable at the time, maybe this is how the old cliche started. Trust me, my son, this is going to hurt me a lot worse than it hurts you. Oh, really? Then let me spank you. You know, there's different viewpoints on that. But God disciplines his children out of love, out of grace. And the reason is that he wants us to be Christ-like. Recently, I read of a couple of research studies that really fascinated me. One was they did a study with hundreds of young people about the ages of 12 to 15 who were in trouble with the law. And they appeared in juvenile court, and some real corrective measures have to be taken. So when they're doing the study, they interviewed these hundreds of kids, these young teenagers, and said, what do you know about your parents' feelings toward you? Why do you think they felt the way that they do about you? And more than 70% of these kids had a similar response. They said, well, I don't think my parents really loved me because they never disciplined me. Really sad. Or I read another study where sociologists were trying to determine what is the impact of placing boundaries on our kids. And so they took an elementary school that had no fences around the playground. And they noticed over a period of time that during recess or during the noon hour, these elementary kids would tend to stay closer to the actual playground equipment, and very seldom did they ever venture off near the streets. However, then they studied in elementary school where the fences, the boundaries on the outside of the playground were very, very obvious. And you know what the difference was? Kids are running around freely. They're laughing. They're going right up to the boundary because they felt safe and secure. And so one of the most loving things that we can do for our kids is to help establish boundaries. It's an act of love. We discipline with love. We also need to recognize the difference between punishment and discipline. Now, punishment is when you are giving something to someone who's done wrong in order to punish them. But discipline is meant to be corrective or to train them to go in the right way. Sometimes as parents, especially in that moment of anger, when our kids have really acted up, we might find ourselves just wanting to punish them with some sort of consequence. Kids can pick up on the difference of if we're just punishing them or disciplining them with the idea of paying them back for what they did, or whether or not we're truly applying loving discipline because we want the best for them. The consequences may be identical, but they pick up on our attitude, and it makes all the difference if they recognize and believe that we're disciplining them because we love them. Let me take you to a second discipline that's going to help us in training up our kids to turn out right. We need the discipline with unity. With unity. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 12. A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. Now, we need the discipline with unity, or another way to say it, we need to have each other's back. You know, whether we are in a married couple situation, or especially, I think, if you're a single parent trying to raise your kids on your own, we need to find somebody who's willing to go back to back with us in raising these kids to want to follow God. And then I want to take you to a classic passage in Ephesians chapter 5 that talks about God's intention for marriage between a man and a woman. It says this in Ephesians chapter 5, as the scriptures say, a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united in one. This is a great mystery, but it's also an illustration of the way Christ and the church are one. So again, I say, each man must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. What this really means to discipline with unity is for the parents to be on the same page when it comes to discipline. Now, as a pastor, I have met and dealt with many, many couples who are struggling, they're having conflict, or they're even contemplating divorce. And the typical sources of conflict always come up. It might be money, it might be sex, it might be communication. But the one that often comes up also is they're not on the same page about how to discipline their kids. And it's a constant source of conflict. And so if you are a married couple, if you are parents of children here today, ask yourself, are you and your spouse on the same page? Do you have unity? And for the rest of us, like maybe those of us who are grandparents, we need to have unity with our adult kids parenting our grandkids. Now, my wife Linda and I, we have 9 grandkids. The youngest is 8 months and the oldest is 15. In fact, she just got her driver's permit about 2 weeks ago. Now, one of our grandkids is Paxton, and he's 6 years old. And let's just say he lives like he's highly caffeinated. He's really not, but he just has so much energy, and the wheels are constantly turning. And he's a pretty typical kid where he tries to play mom against the dad, like we saw in the Everybody Loves Raymond clip a little bit ago. And one of his requests time and time again is bubble gum. And he'll go to my daughter and go, Mommy, can I have bubble gum? No, not before dinner. This is not a good time for bubble gum. And I've seen him do this. 30 seconds later, he's by my son-in-law going, Daddy, can I have bubble gum? Well, I suppose. And then I can hear my daughter going, no, not before dinner. And so they're going back and forth. Well, just this last week, Linda and I, we were taking care of Paxton and his older brother. And we were getting ready to eat, and Paxton came up to us, and he said, I'd like some bubble gum. And I said, no, I don't think your parents want you to have bubble gum. I think on their way out tonight, I think they said something about that I should have bubble gum. And I said, I don't think so. And I don't know what it's like in North Dakota, but we have Minnesota Nice, and you talk about being passive-aggressive. 2 minutes later, he is walking around in the living room, making sure that I can hear him, and he is making up a song. Oh, I really love my parents, and I really think that they want me to have some bubble gum. And I really love my grandpa and grandma, and I think they should let me have bubble gum. The answer was still no. It's hard. Let's go to the next discipline. We need the discipline with consequences. Not only should we discipline with love and discipline with unity, but we need to discipline with consequences. Now, consequences can be controversial. In fact, the next verse that we're going to take a look at is probably controversial for some people. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 24. Those who spare the rod of discipline hate their children. Those who love their children care enough to discipline them. Now, on one hand, the word rod can mean a physical piece of wood or some instrument or weapon of choice. It's a spanking utensil. But in the original language, the word rod is referring to, it's a figure of speech. It's any kind of consequence that we use to get our kids' attention and to help them to do right and to be trained and to learn the right way to go. I got spanked, without a doubt. But one thing I noticed about my dad after he would spank me, and almost always, in fact, I don't ever remember my dad disciplining me out of anger. But he would discipline me, and I remember several times when he would spank me, then he would pull me over close to him, he'd sit me on his lap, and he'd give me a hug and say, I love you. And then he would pray with me that I would learn the why I had just gotten the consequence. Now, as I was getting a little older and, getting to the point where maybe spankings weren't going to work, I just wanted to say, okay, Dad, I get it, and let's save time. We don't have to even pray together. I mean, kids will do almost anything to get away with something. Why? Because we're born sinful. We must love them, but they're born sinful. And that's why it's important to discipline with consequences. How else are they going to learn? Now, don't send emails to the church, anything like this, but I'll just give you my personal opinion. I think appropriate spanking with a specific kind of kid is okay. Now, let's take it. Now I want a survey. This is a rod of discipline. This is the wooden spoon. Now, seriously, raise your hand. Did any of you ever get spanked with a wooden spoon? Oh, my goodness, yeah. Over half of you. This is how wooden spoon companies make their money. It's through spanking kids. Okay? My wife and I, we grew up on James Dobson, Dr. Dobson, about disciplining kids. And one of the things he said that really got our attention was, don't use your hands to spank. Let that always be about love. Use something else, a physical item. If you're going to spank, use something else. And so we applied this, and this seemed to work pretty well. In our home, we just had to make sure that we had enough rods of discipline. So we had a wooden spoon on the main level. We had a wooden spoon downstairs in the basement. And, of course, we had one underneath the front seat of the car, just in case. Now, think about it. It's like Chevy Chase Family Vacation. You put 2 or 3 kids in the back seat. Have you ever realized it seems that a demon actually jumps into the back seat with them? And it's very difficult to discipline your kids while they're fighting in the back seat and you're driving and going somewhere, unless you pull over, of course. And so I'll never forget this one time. My wife, Linda, she's so sweet, but she was on the verge of losing it. And so she reached down underneath, grabbed the wooden spoon, and she just held it back here and said, "You're all being misbehaved. You're all wrong. So whoever gets it, gets it." And I'm looking in the rearview mirror, and I'm seeing our 3 kids laughing, trying to duck out of the way. We have to think through how we're going to discipline. What are the kinds of consequences that we're using? Let me tell you about a time when I lost it. Ephesians chapter 6:4, this was me. "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger by the way you treat them. Rather, bring them up with the discipline and instruction that comes from the Lord." You know, a lot of kids, they would rather have a spanking than take away screen time, right? I mean, if you really want to get your kids' attention, you take away screen time. But I'll never forget, I was downstairs in our family room, and our 2 boys were fighting, and I tried to get them to stop. And I was so angry, I lost it. And I wasn't disciplining out of love. I was disciplining with punishment in mind. It was payback because they were messing up the day and they were being really bad. And so I was so angry, I looked around to see where we had left that wooden spoon. I couldn't find it. And I wasn't about to take the time to head upstairs to the main level to go get one. So I just looked around and I found the closest thing I could find to give them a spanking. And I grabbed a rubber ball. And I said, "Hands on the floor, guys." And so both of them have their hands on the floor. And I was going to really give it to them. So I took this rubber ball and I started just beating on their behind. Bam, 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 bam. The next thing I hear is both my boys laughing hilariously because they're going, Dad, it doesn't hurt. And all of a sudden I got convicted that I was disciplining out of anger. And so I just smiled and I said, "Oh, guys, I'm sorry I was mad." And then I jumped on top of them and we rolled around and dogpiled and laughed like crazy. And even to this day, as a 41-year-old and a 38-year-old son, we still have a fun memory about that. Because deep down, we knew that we really loved each other. Let's go to the last discipline I want you to think about. Discipline with consistency. With consistency. Proverbs 22, we're going to go back to this verse one more time. Proverbs 22, verse 6. "Train a child in the way that he should go, and when they're old, they will not depart from it." The idea of training here is an idea of dedicating. In the Hebrew language, it has the connotation of offering even your kids as an offering to God, to dedicate them to God. And that involves training them in the way that they should go. And when you think about training, if you're studying to be a nurse, if you're in nurse's training, it's not a one-time class. It's over and over again, and it's a process. The same with being an athlete. If you're an athlete in training, it's not a one-time workout. It's a commitment to keep working out over and over again. And that's what discipline of children is really all about, too. It's not a one-time deal. It's something we have to stick with and be consistent, that we really follow through. I know of a dad who said that he realized he had to be more consistent when he overheard his teenage son saying to a friend who was over, "Yeah, I got grounded. 2 weeks. Oh, no, that's horrible." It's not a big deal. It won't last more than 2 or 3 days. Now, how did that son pick up on that? Well, they had observed that mom or dad or both were not being consistent. They were not following through. Children observe our behavior. All right. Let me conclude with this. Virtually all of you in some way, whether or not you're a Christ follower, you've heard of Billy Graham. And Billy Graham is perhaps the most famous evangelist this world has ever seen. And recently I've been doing some reading about his life and about his family life, his personal life, 5 kids, and the challenge was Billy was on the road more than half the time. And so his wife, Ruth, ended up being the primary disciplinarian. And so you can kind of see this coming. A funny thing about her discipline, she actually found some helpful ideas in a dog training manual. And seriously, that's what she wrote. And she talks about learning to keep the commands and the directions with her kids simple and to the point, and then when they did it right, to reward them. That seemed to work. So then Billy would come home from some worldwide trip, some crusade somewhere in some other country, and he'd been gone for weeks. And he would come home, and one time when he came home, Franklin, at the age of 3, and Franklin is the one who now heads up Samaritan's Purse Ministries. When he was 3, he looked at his daddy and he goes, "Who he?" Broke Billy's heart. And so Billy had a tendency to be more lenient, and the mom, Ruth, would try to discipline the best she could, and then when Billy get home, it's just like, okay, everything's sort of up for grabs again. But their daughter, Gigi, I want to read to you what she writes. She says, "Once my dad disciplined me for something I did. I don't even remember what it was about, but we had some disagreement in the kitchen. I ran up the stairs, and when I thought I was out of range, I stomped my feet, and then I ran into the room and locked the door. My dad came up the stairs 2 at a time, it sounded like, because he was so angry. And when I finally opened the door, he pulled me across the room, sat me on the bed, and he gave me a real tongue lashing. I said, 'Some dad you are. You're never here. You always leave us. You're always gone.' Immediately, my dad's eyes filled with tears, and it broke my heart. This whole scene was always a part of my memory bank after that. I realized that he was making a sacrifice too, but it seemed like he didn't discipline as much after that." Franklin was always a handful. And for any of you who know the story, when Franklin was a teenager, he totally rebelled. He went off the path of following God, as did a sister, and as did Ned, the youngest. Ned, the youngest sibling, manifested his rebellion by turning to more than a casual use of drugs, including cocaine. He said this, "While I was embroiled in all of that, my parents were just very patient. They expressed concern and displeasure over my behavior, but never once did they make me feel rejected as a person. Their love for me was always unconditional. Their home was always open, no matter what condition I was in. They gave themselves to me, and I never felt that their love was conditioned on my meeting some requirement. Eventually, their grace and love was just irresistible. So Ned came back too. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he or she is old, they will not depart from it." I share this with you because one of the most revered Christian leaders of all time struggled in raising and disciplining kids just like we do, or we did. So have hope. Discipline out of love. Discipline with unity. Discipline with consequences. Discipline with consistency. But more than anything else, let God's Spirit fill us with His grace so that our grace and love for our kids or those we're raising is just absolutely irresistible. Let's pray together. Lord Jesus, we just close this service, and I lift up every mom and dad as a couple. Maybe it's a blended family situation. I lift up every single parent. I lift up anybody who has anything to do with disciplining and raising kids. And we want the best for our kids and grandkids, but it pales in comparison to what you want for them. You have the most amazing plan. You want them to know you, to follow you, to live for you. And so with your love and your Spirit's power in us, I pray that this next week we might evaluate where we're at. Maybe we pick up a Christian book on disciplining kids. Maybe we get in a small group and support each other. Lord, I pray that we will seek you and trust you as we raise our kids. And I pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.